man, there are some truly half-witted hot takes going on around Monster Hunter Wilds right now, and I've just about had it. Many of them are made by people suffering some ignorance, not stupidity, just ignorance. They don't know any better, somehow, about what the beta is, and how its codebase differs from the final game that will be released, and just how old that code is by comparison. But I have broken that apart myself in other videos, and if they didn't hear it from me, or the dozens upon dozens upon dozens upon dozens of other sane people, content creators, influencers, whatever, trying to make these dopes understand this, then there's really no hope of getting through to them now. So I'm not gonna try again. I give up. But while the beta doesn't perfectly represent the look of the final game, it's missing some graphical features, like, for example, ray tracing, which we saw in the benchmark tool, isn't in the beta. But it is all we have right now to go hands-on with it in any real, practical, interactive sense. And there's one particular flavor of hot take that has been driving me bat crap insane the past couple of days as it rears its head again and does the rounds like a virus within the community, with the second beta exposing a taste of the game to more people than ever. And it is people calling the game ugly, if you can believe it. Or even dumber still, comparing it to PS2 or PS3 or Switch games, which I have seen that particular take so much over the last day and a half. Do people not remember what PS3 games actually looked like? I mean, some of them look pretty good, but they didn't look like this. That kind of stuff is just too silly to even address. I'm leaving that alone as well. But one other really common one is claiming that Wilds is some kind of massive visual downgrade compared to Monster Hunter World. I played MH World again to compare it, and it looks better than Wilds. Wilds is a straight downgrade from World. It lacked details compared to World's desert. Why does Wilds look so much worse than World? I don't understand this. It baffles me how the game can look so much worse than World did. Is it just me? Or does the graphics look like a downgrade from World? I'm sorry, but are we playing the same games? Because I don't think we are playing the same games. Which alternate timeline did you come from? Because in mine, that's a silly thing to say, and I can prove it to you. Now, while it is true, we're not seeing the same kinds of generation-to-generation leaps in graphics that we saw once upon a time when we moved between, say, the PS2 and the PS3, for example. We haven't seen that kind of leap for quite some time now. To expect it at all is also silly. Anyone expecting that kind of next-gen leap forward in graphics, they're just being stupid. But claiming that Monster Hunter World looks better than Wilds is just... it's not true. It's just not true. It's a lie. Look, let's not get into any more name calling than I already have done. Trust me, I've been holding back so far. How about we just look at some side-by-sides of actual, real gameplay? Now, of course, it's impossible to perfectly match the gameplay between these two games, but I've done my best here to match up some like-for-likes when it comes to the kind of local environment and lighting conditions and foliage and water and caves and rocky valleys and sandy deserts and direct sunlight and all that kind of stuff. And I'd like for you to just see for yourself. And don't just look at the textures and go, well, that rock texture looks a bit better. Just pay attention to it all. Pay attention to the complexity of the lighting, the complexity of the environments. Pay special attention to the lighting on the character, the fidelity of the character, the fidelity of the environment, the artifacting in the restoration in World in particular. There's a decent chance that YouTube's compression will sort of dull some of that out, but it's pretty pixel crawly in the raw footage. Now, I have both of these games running with maximum settings, with the exception of far shadow detail, sky quality, and variable rate shading, all of which I have turned down a little bit in Wilds, because the beta is old code and it has performance issues. And I am, of course, also running World with the optional high-res texture pack DLC. This is as good as World can look. looking and running far better than it does on console, by the way. So, for your consideration, please watch the following side by side and answer me this. Is Wilds really a graphical downgrade? Are you going to stand by that? Are you going to let that out into the world with your name next to it and stand by that statement that Wilds is a downgrade graphically from World? So there you are. Hopefully that was sufficient for you to make some educated comparisons. Now, I don't know about you, but I think Wilds is noticeably and significantly better graphically. It's obvious to me. That said, World doesn't look bad by any measure by today's standards, does it? World was and remains a very pleasant game to look at, and that graphical fidelity was part of the reason it, like Wilds is now, at launch was pushing people's hardware to the limit, something else I've spoken about at length recently. Man, oh man, are people not really listening to what I'm saying in that video? They're just imagining what I said and reacting angrily to it. I've abusive comments on that video for people just imagining what I'm trying to say instead of listening to what I say. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. Anyway, it's also worth noting, while they're not in the beta, we've seen footage in the trailers and in gameplay showcases from the other maps and zones that are going to be in Wilds, and frankly, I consider them all prettier than the windswept plains we have in the beta. So based on what we've seen so far, I think the windswept plains is, in fact, the worst looking part of Wilds. This is as ugly as the game gets, as far as I'm concerned. Well, it's not ugly, but this is, comparatively the worst looking zone, in my opinion. Don't know about you, but I've always been more partial to the volcanic and Arctic style maps for visual flair and stylistic pizzazz, and just overall, visual cool factor. Know what I mean? Also, while that makes it kind of tricky to play, man, this game looks real tidy with all that HUD stuff turned off, didn't it? Anyway, thanks if you watched this all. Thanks to the patrons. I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time.